you need to understand that the virtues are interconnected. They're interrelated and they're interdependent. It's not like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The best way to see this is if you bake a cake. There are 7 steps in baking the cake, but no one of those steps is the cake. If you leave something out, you don't get a cake, you get a mess. Or something resembling a cake, but it's not a cake. You might say, what's wrong with this cake? There's no sugar in it.
No eggs.
You can't say, I don't have enough time, so I'll leave something out. Can't cook like that, can't bake like that, how could you live like that? A parent who would say, I give them shelter and food and clothing. What else do they want? The missing ingredient oftentimes in many social justice outreaches, and this is me now, I make a distinction between social justice and gospel justice. Social justice is when you make right that which is wrong in a society because someone's rights or needs or necessities are compromised, oftentimes by forces over which they have no control. But gospel justice, in the Christian sense, and therefore in the Vincentian sense, is motivated by Jesus. With no disrespect to social workers, if you do the work of a social worker, you do it precisely as an apostle and a disciple of Jesus Christ, in which you are not simply doing what he commanded, but being who he is. You're not simply doing what he said. You are who he is. As the Catechism puts it in my language, the who-ness of Christ, the what makes Jesus Jesus is what makes you you. In other words, to be heretical, you're another incarnation of Jesus. Let's go all the way. You're Jesus reincarnated. If we consult the theological implications with some perspectives and amendments, but that's what you are. You're not people doing what you do so you can please him. You are the grace of Jesus in the world. They who see you, see me. They who hear you, hear me. You will do the works that I have done and greater things than these. Jesus has empowered your heart to go berserk with love. When I first came to Hayward, I needed an automobile. I had no money, no credit. And the dealer down in Hayward said, find a car you like, I think this one will work real well for you, take it. You can pay for it when you get settled. Take 100 years to pay for it. But let's go out for a spin and I'll show you what this baby does. goes from 0 to 40 in 35 seconds. On 880? So it goes up to 110. That's a little slow for 580. You ever drive and you see your car, the speedometer can go up to 110? You're cruising along at 50. Want to go somewhere and take it up to 100, see if this baby can fly. Jesus in your heart makes your soul fly. He doesn't replace you, he empowers you. I will send you my spirit, not I will replace you. Here's one of the mistakes. Now this is me again, so this is one of my, I walk the deep end with this, so. Now people say God uses you. I don't even use my vacuum cleaner. I asked Cynthia if it's okay if we clean the floor. I have a relationship with my vacuum cleaner, it has a name. My car has a name. My mop has a name. My shoes have names. I don't relate to anything as an object. Can you imagine what your shoes do for you? Have someone treat you like a shoe. God doesn't use you. You use things. You relate to people. Sometimes we talk about you are an instrument of God. That's different than being used. So for those of you who play an instrument, you take care of it. Sometimes the relationship you have with the instrument conforms to your genius. You and the instrument, you just can't pick up any old instrument. You long for your instrument. There's a difference between playing an instrument and using it. When we talk about God using, to me it nullifies what grace is. Long time ago when I was a little kid in school, Sister Mary was teaching us about grace. And Sister Mary came in with a philodendron that was like, and she said to us kids, look at the poor thing. And we watered it. And 15 minutes later, she said, that's God's grace. It doesn't make the plant other than what it is. It makes the plant what it is. If we look at this from the viewpoint of creation in Hinduism, the divine and the universe has conspired delightfully that you may exist in this moment. You know you're in Western society when you hear this. Oh, you get born, you live a few years, you go away, nobody knows who you are, you're insignificant. Sometimes in Lent you hear that. We become aware of our insignificance. No. You become aware that you're invaluable. The forces of the universe all have to be exactly where they are right now for you to be where you are right now. Everything in creation is causing you to be in this moment. Be it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, for 50 years, or 100 years. You ever offer someone who's thirsty drink or food? They're hungry. You know what that's like? If you're hungry, I've never been hungry in my life. The closest I've ever gotten to hungry is late for lunch. When I'm late for lunch, I'll say things like this: I'm starving to death. I'm starving to death. If anything, I'm dying because I eat too much. How long does it take to eat a sandwich? Eternity breaks in that moment. When you see somebody eating who hasn't had anything to eat. But you and I put an ingredient in that sandwich that other people might or might not, but you definitely do. And it's love that we explored this morning. It's the self-giving love. It's the love that baked the bread before the bread was needed. That love you have has been watered by the Spirit. It's enhanced in a new, particular, peculiar, and wonderful way in you. You know how it might be Wednesday night and it's time to do the work? And we all may be in the same place with the outreach, the soup, the whatever. And you can see the multiple gifts at work. You can see the extraordinariness of some people. God, she's going to make that soup tonight. I don't know how she does it. You give her next to nothing and some water, and the next thing you know, it's abundant, and it's delicious, and it's tasty, and it's satisfying, and it's transformative. Look at Bill over there. He's greeting people we've seen over and over again. Same old people with the same old story. And he's acting like it's the first time and it's Christmas Eve. How does he do that? Paul just simply says there are many gifts in the one body, but have you ever seen what the many gifts look like? Which one of our clusters or societies could last for 5 minutes if it wasn't for the multiplicity of gifts and the uniqueness of peoples? You can no more have one virtue than you can have one gift. There's an infrastructure in the virtues. Matter of fact, if we look at this from the Dominican point of view, Thomas Aquinas, after whom I'm named by my great-grandmother, talk about confusion. Thomas Aquinas said the very definition of a vice is a virtue all by itself. For example, I always tell the truth. Really? So when your wife comes in the room and says, "Do you like my hat?" I think twice about that answer. Because without prudence or sensitivity, your truthful answer may break someone's heart. But yet, do you have a grandchild? Grandma, Grandpa, I made this picture of you. You say to yourself, if I ever look like this, I'd volunteer for cremation. Now, here's what you do, you liars. Oh, sweetheart, that's so beautiful, girl. I'm going to put it right up here on the refrigerator. And I hope that every time you come over, I remember to take it out. Got it? So when Vincent enunciates the virtues of the community, they're like 5 ingredients. If you don't mix them together, you don't get a cake. You get a mess. If you leave one out, it's not going to taste right. It's not going to form. The virtues form an infrastructure. They belong together. They create a way of life. That in the real world, one person might do better than another, but no one can be left out. This is the true story. I know people think I make this stuff up, but I don't. Long time ago, when I was looking for mentors for the interfaith work, walking down Market Street, and there's 2 people dancing. There's a crowd around the 2 people singing and doing their thing, disturbing the peace. And I walk down the street and have peace and quiet, not noise. And by the way, you're blocking the sidewalk. How am I supposed to go through the don't walk sign if you're going to block the sidewalk? So I started getting into my mode, get out of my way. You're blocking my way, I'm going to call the cops. But then the Spirit of God said, why don't you stop, look, and listen and see what's going on? I love model railroads. I like real railroads. The greatest sign in the world. Stop, look, listen. Talk about synodal. Stop, look, listen. So I stopped, looked, and listened. Sure enough, there's the 2 people dancing. She had one right leg and he had one left leg. I said, I don't care what I'm doing. I'm waiting for this multitude to go away. I got to interview those 2 people. I walked up to them and they looked at me and said, is there something wrong? I said, no, but there's something kind of strange. I said, you 2 do know that you're missing a leg? The guy said, yeah, we sort of know that. Well, so what happened? One day, you were sitting down and you discovered she had a right leg and you had a left leg and said, can we dance? How do you do this? And the 3 of us went for coffee. And they were trying to retrieve when they met, because she said, oh, Tom, it feels like we've been doing this forever. You bring your right leg, I'll bring my left leg, and this dance goes on. That's going on out there all the time. Vincentianism's on the loose, whether it knows it or not. It's running wild in the world. There's people out there working for peace in the midst of conflict and division. You think they take a hint. Stop working out, go home. Some of you should be retired. Go home. Get your rocking chair, your hot water bottle, your X-Lax, or whatever you need. And self-medicate and take care of yourself. You've done enough. No, but this is what you hear. Well, nobody in the other church wanted to do it. Well, if nobody in the church wanted to do it, then close the church and that's it, it's over. Nobody in the church wants to follow Jesus, fine. There's no other way to follow Jesus than Vincentianism. In case you haven't figured this out, feeding the hungry is not optional. It's not one of those tables in October where you like to sign up. It's not a sign-up table in October. Gifts, talents, and treasures, and would you like to be an usher or feed the hungry? Even if you're an usher, you feed the hungry. Even if you're the priest, you feed the hungry. Imagine that. Even if you're the deacon, you feed the hungry. Even if you're in the altar society, you feed the hungry. That's not optional. It is the gospel. They who say they love God, whom they do not see, and hate their neighbor, whom they do see, the Epistle of John said, are liars. Frederick said, are Pharisees. Do you understand that what you do is not optional? It is the heart of the gospel. It is the gospel. It is the heart of the church. And you have to be very careful that the church doesn't forget it, or the church will line up with political people who hate the people we would die for. What do you think the Franciscan movement was? It was a protest against the imperialism in the church. We're quite capable of thinking that what we believe about Jesus is more important than Jesus. We'll debate a doctrine to death. We'll call ourselves liberals and conservatives. Feeding the hungry is not liberal agenda. I love it when people come out here, how you believe how liberals are. You want to feed everything that moves. No, as a matter of fact, I might not want to. No, as a matter of fact, if I cave into my prejudice, I might hate rather than love. But I believe in Jesus. I'm touched by the Spirit of Jesus. And if you get a Jesus infection, believing in Jesus turns into becoming Jesus. And therefore there's inward conversion. And that inward conversion can be disturbing. I really wanted this for me, but my higher consciousness says, I have the privilege of giving it to you. Want to look at the verses? Page 16. I think we have enough time. There's 5. You know that better than I do. The first one I love. Actually, I don't. They say it was Vincent's core virtue, simplicity. Oh, I know simplicity. Thank you so much. I'll live simply so others can simply live. When I read this in Vincentian spirituality, I said to myself, this is a very odd way of thinking about simplicity. For Vincent, simplicity meant to speak honestly. It doesn't even fit. I looked it up in dictionaries. Nowhere in dictionaries Simplicity get defined as honesty. Simplicity means simplicity. You know, you throw stuff out you don't need, you simplify the house, you downsize, you clean the basement, you don't need this anymore. You take it down. That's simplicity. Honesty in your word. It's brilliant. It's right out of the Gospel of John. In the beginning was the Word. God spoke that word, and that word became Jesus. You and I speak Jesus. It can't get simpler than that. What language do you speak, Jesus? Is that French? German? Hebrew? Greek? Gibberish? I speak Jesus. See the alignment? In the beginning was the Word became flesh. As a matter of fact, in the Bible, the word is not something that's spoken, but something that's done. You have my word on that. In Western culture, the word means information. In biblical culture, the word means revelation. The word becomes flesh in the deeds of actuality. It's simple. It's when what I say and what I do is lined up. Now, if you're trying to be a Vincentian and you don't want to be, you're going to need some help. Because you can perform the deed. But the deed requires interiority. It's not conformity to an outward command. It's the revelation of what's in your heart. A couple of years ago, a woman came up to me and said, "Father, I'd like to have a baby." And they're coming to me? I get kind of intrigued at times as to, do I have a baby? So I said, "That's lovely. Why do you want to have a baby?" She said, "My sister has one." I don't know why I asked her this question, but I did. I said, "Do you want to be a mother?" She said, "No. I want to have a baby." Like, what part of this, Tom, do you not get? Did I say I wanted to be a mother? No. What did I say? You wanted to have a baby. See, you might want to have an automobile, but you don't want to be an automobile mechanic. You might want to have a TV, but you don't want to be a TV repair person. You might want to have lunch, but you don't want to cook. You want to take care of the poor so they go away? Get them out of your hair? Dispense with the problem? You see the alignment? I read that word simplicity with alignment. I want to have a baby, but I don't want to be a mother. Somebody else can raise it. Which is not uncommon in certain sectors of the society. For those of you who ever had children, or for those of you who ever were a child, remember the fact, I want a puppy. Mother says, "That's really nice. And who's going to take care of the puppy?" "I will. I'll walk her in the morning, I'll walk her in the afternoon, I'll walk her at night. I'll buy the food, I'll get a part-time job. Day 2. Who's raising the puppy?
Yeah.
Not the one who wanted it. Probably the one who didn't. Second virtue, humility. You ponder the literature of the St. Vincent de Paul Society under the area of humility, and it says something that makes me cry. We humbly accept God's grace. See, in most of the Christianity I come from, humility is you become aware of how no good you are, and God loves you anyhow, scum. Here's your sandwich. You really don't deserve it, but I'm giving it to you because it gives me grace. The Vincentian stands before God and humbly receives God's grace. Maybe you know you're insufficient. Maybe you know you're failed. Maybe you have some secrets that you know about yourself. Maybe in that last trip to Denver, you remember what you really did. Maybe when you were a younger person, you were inconsistent, and bothers you to this day. The Vincentian stands before God not humiliated. Sometimes people in the church get that confused. They confuse humiliation with humility. Humiliation is what you do to you. Graciousness is what God does to you. Remember when I went to my therapist a long time ago? Somebody said, too bad you quit, but a long time ago when I went to my therapist. Tom, there's someone I want you to meet. I said, who? You. Vincentians humbly received the grace of God that they might be the grace of God. Paul put it this way, I hand unto you what I received from the Lord. Third, page 18. Gentleness. Jesus said, come to me, all you who are troubled. Learn from me. I am meek and humble of heart. Your souls will find rest. Come to me. You ever have somebody come to you in deep need with great fear? They're not humble, they're humiliated. They feel like their life has been a failure. It humiliates them to ask for anything. They're afraid you might put them down. Inadvertently, we might ask a question like, well, how long have you been like this? We've got to be very careful that our gathering of information doesn't make the deep wounds that they have bleed. There's a gentleness. The St. Vincent de Paul Society in its literature says, the gentleness we have for other people, especially those in need, is born of an interior love for them. Pope Francis put it this way: we don't simply serve people, we care for the people we serve. Vincentians call that gentleness. Comes from the heart. You can see why you and I have to do the interior work. Otherwise, we'll get busy. You ever get busy? You get busy and forgot you had a heart. You think you're a hand. You think you're a hand that moves inventory. Now it's time to go have a visit. It's the downside of the upside of being incarnated like Christ. You have to catch the busyness, not ridicule it. You have to ask the question, why am I running around with my head cut off? Because I love with the love of Jesus. Not insult yourself. I love how some people think Lent is, well, let's all get together and say nasty things about one another. And if you run out of material, then go into self-attack. I'm really no good. I'm really a sinner. You ever hear that? Here's how you know you're dealing with cheap Christianity. You're a sinner. No, you're not. You're beloved. Don't ever think that your sin is greater than God's love. I don't know what gospel that is. The Easter Vigil. You ever go to the Easter Vigil and hear that service that never ends? There's a great big song in there called the Exultet. To ransom a slave, you gave away a son. What good would life be to us had not Jesus come as our Redeemer? Oh, happy fault of Adam. A happy fault. What on earth is a happy fault? Happy fault. Once I accidentally on purpose broke my mother's favorite lamp. She told me not to touch it, so what did I do? Touch it. What did it do? It jumped off the table, committed lampicide. I was convinced when she came home, she would commit homicide. There's no doubt who the victim would be. I met her at the door, about 5. Sorry, Mom. What now? You know that lamp you loved? And I got the grammar correct, loved. She said, that damn thing, I always hated it. I was waiting for you to break it. She hugged me. Meanwhile, I'm all getting ready to go to confession with Father Moriarty. If you think life can't get any worse, go to him. Wow. Gentleness. I discovered that my mother loved me more than a lamp. The people that come to you discover that you love them more than they can possibly imagine. That's why we're here today. We're here today because we love them. Matter of fact, they're here today. We're here because of them. They're our mentors. They're our masters. Pope Francis said we need to meet the poor. They have something to say to us. Page 19, selflessness. Dying to ego. Vincentian spirituality is really good because it says dying to ego, not necessarily dying to self. Dying to self is brilliant, but it's a little problematic because when you die to your ego, your self can rise. Don't let your ego get in the way of yourself. Be your own best friend. Don't let the egotistical, I want, I desire, I need, without any reflection, interfere with what you truly desire. Talking to Alice on Gary Street in San Francisco 20 years ago on the dynamics of dialogue while she was digging around in the garbage can, looked up at me and said, "Make sure, Tom, that people share with you what they truly believe. And don't simply share with you what they think they ought to share." Get the ego out of the way. Now, before I answer this question, let me cover all the bases so you don't hurt me if you quote me again. Make sure you don't meet me. No, I didn't say that, and if I did, that's not what I meant. Vincent talks about simplicity. Coming forth from the heart. Here you see it again. Don't let the ego get in the way of the self. Does that make sense? That's a very powerful thing to say. Not everybody says it. Most people say die to self, as opposed to die to ego so the self can rise. When Jesus goes to his best friend's tomb, Lazarus, in John 11, he said, "Lazarus, come forth," calls him by name. The Christ is always standing in front of you, inviting you to come forth. John, come forth. Beverly, come forth. Alice, come forth. Don't let your ego that role plays survival interfere with yourself that is life. Finally, page 20, zeal. Vincent called it the soul of the virtues. I don't think I ever heard anybody use that. The soul of the virtues. The heart of the virtues, zeal. It's the word for passion. It's when you love to do what you do. When you begin to realize that the sometimes busyness has passion underneath it. I do this because I really want to do this. One woman shared with me that her family got mad at her because every Christmas she would go visit people to bring food and gifts and self. And they kept yelling at her, "Be with your family, be with your family, what's wrong with you? Why are you always going out to those people?" And every year she went out to those people, till one year, one of the children at the table, her grandson said to the family that was complaining that she's always out with those people, he said, "Well, if we really want Grandma to be with us, maybe we should be with her." And the dad said, "What do you mean? Why don't we go with her?" In other words, what is the proper way to eat turkey? In a house, with a table, Would Alexa sing in Silent Night? With the tree twinkling? Or to go where they are, so they're no longer those people, but our family. Zeal. Soul of the virtues. Where you see this in the New Testament, John chapter 2. Jesus goes into the temple and causes trouble. Thank you, Vincent. He throws himself in between. Thank you, Frederick. And John's gospel says, zeal for the house of God consumed him. He wasn't rejecting the temple. He was rejecting the injustice by which the temple no longer worshiped God, but worshiped money, power, greed, self-righteousness, at the expense of the poor. Quit turning my Father's house into a den of thieves. That's what Vincentians do. They look like they're going down the street with a brown shopping bag. They need to be stopped by investigators. Hey, what's in the bag? Peanut butter, flour, sugar, milk, a chicken, and a note. Know your friends love you. Here's a few dollars. Wish it could be more. Let's put all those ingredients together, and what do we get? Zeal, passion, and the risen Jesus. And once again, there were disciples of Jesus going down the Emmaus Road. And they took their hand and plunged it into the wounds of the poor. And the next thing you know, you and I, mesmerized by so great a gift, said, my Lord and my God. Please know of my love, prayer, and respect for you. Do not let our church and do not let any particular church become a den of thieves. But a temple of God's love. Be at peace. Steve, lead us in the way we must go.
What we'd like to do now is turn to where you're at right now and do a little small group